Okie dokie. Looks like we're recording, so hey everyone, Trevor here with Grain Free Me, and wanted to do a quick update tonight. It's hasn't been that long, like a week, 10 days, something like that, I think. But I've really been dealing with a lot of crash and physical issues here. And it got me thinking these last few days because I was working on pizza crust recipes that if I keep trying to do this completely on my own, it's going to take me 2 to 3 years before I can actually start getting recipes tested and put out. And that I can't do that. This stuff needs to get tested and put out there. So I posted tonight on Facebook, um, looking for, two, maybe more local people in Fremont that would be willing to become recipe builders, test chefs, basically, which is a totally normal thing for any restaurant, cookbook, food business. I had kind of hoped that I would be able to do a lot of this stuff on my own simply for the fact that I couldn't, with everything else that I've built and have going on, I flat out just couldn't figure out a way to do it. How do you create something that's fair enough to, the hourly wage versus royalty and commission on things? How do you work that from my kitchen where I'm here to test out the recipes versus someone taking, if someone was in California, they'd have to buy all the gear and gadgets and ingredients themselves. And that can be a huge investment. So I'm going to stick with trying to find a couple of local people, if at all possible, because that way, like the pizza crust recipes, okay, so I ran through 6 different recipes over the last 3 or 4 days. It's not just about the recipes, it's the fact that I have to shred all my own cheese and doing the dishes. I don't have a dishwasher, so doing all the dishes myself. I was going so far over my steps for the last 3 or 4 days that man, I've been miserable. And that sucks to say, but this is the condition. I'm trying to find the ways to work around it. Here's what I came up with for anybody that's interested. And you don't have to be in Fremont per se. I think there's a million different opportunities to work with people that aren't here in Fremont. The main thing is getting recipes out faster. If I have, let's say, 2 people here in Fremont that can use my gear, and especially like on a bad day, if they want to work on something, it's up to them. And I should probably go back to the beginning here. So what I figured out is basically a royalty kind of system. For every recipe that you create, you're going to get credit on that on the actual website. You know, it's not a recipe that I created. It's a recipe you created, so you'll get that a chunk of the sales. Right now I'm just thinking kind of maybe 10%. Simple. So if it's a $2 recipe, you're going to get 20 cents. If it's a $3 recipe, you're going to get 30 cents. If it's a $5 recipe, you're going to get 50 cents per sale. And I understand that that doesn't sound like it might be much, but I'm the one that's taken on all of the other responsibility here. You know, the trademark name, all the work going into the website, getting all of this started, this whole idea. And I was looking at the hourly wage, you know, so like on average, I would say a typical recipe for me runs anywhere from 40 to 60 hours and a couple $100 worth of ingredients to test it and try it out. So if I had to pay someone at $20 an hour, which would be insane because I'm honestly looking for somebody that doesn't have experience. There's a lot of bad habits that, let's say, chefs might pick up over the years. A lot of biases. And what I'm trying to do here is so different than what a typical chef, line cook, etc. I just couldn't, and I didn't think it was fair either. You know, if I paid somebody $20 an hour to make and test a recipe with me, let's say just the chaffle recipe alone, you know, that took me hundreds of hours to test and try. I can't do that. Nobody can, you know, unless you're a big, huge, major food corporation. But for me, it didn't make sense at the same time, too, because of the fact that if someone spent seriously 40 hours on creating a recipe that could go up on the web page at $20 an hour, they made $800. Okay, $800. Now, if that ends up being a $5 recipe on the web page, and we sell 1 million copies of that across the globe, they just, you know, they kind of got screwed. You know, if we just look at that at 50 cents a recipe, times, let's just say 100,000. That's like $50,000 right there versus $800. And that could be like in a month. So I really struggled with that, which some people might think I'm crazy. But here's the thing. My whole idea is about helping other people out. I'm not greedy. You know, I don't know where my medical issues are going to take me in 2 or 3 years down the road. So it's so much more important for me to find some people to work with, partner up with. Okay? If I kept all of that money myself, what good is it going to do me? You know, I can't take it with me, and trying to find that balance between, what's fair for other people and what's fair for me is kind of coming down to that point. So I'm looking at that as like a 10% royalty versus $20 an hour one time payment. And in reality, that's where most test cooks and recipe creators live, is that one time, they work for the company, they create the recipe, and they don't get any of the benefits for it. Where here I'm looking at it as, if I could do 10%, some of the recipes might be 5%. I'm still working on that aspect. But you're talking lifelong potential as passive income. Build the recipe once, and that's it. Move on to the next recipe. Build the next recipe once. And as long as the internet still works, that's still potential income coming in from spending and investing your time into that recipe. I don't know. If you guys have a different suggestion, toss it out there. But I think this is probably the most fair option that I can come up with. The other thing, too, with this is the aspect of how many other doors this can open up for people. The guild aspect of, if you're doing recipes with me, maybe your kids want to get involved. They could start a cottage food business off of the recipes and package things and sell locally. I really don't want people, and I need to rephrase that again, because with this whole idea, it's about keeping things local. I don't ever want to see somebody take this, and I won't allow it. It's in the licensing agreements for personal and cottage food and brick and mortar licensing. You can't ship. It has to be local. I'm going to have to work around that a little bit until this gets bigger and more people join up with becoming local producers. But there is such a huge safety aspect, and every single day and I know maybe I'm beating a dead horse here, but every single day we're seeing listeria outbreaks, E. coli outbreaks, coming all from these big, huge salmonella. That's another one too, from these big factory corporations. Doing everything local for the most part, especially if you can hook up with a neighborhood gardener for fresh tomatoes and things that you could dehydrate. It solves so many issues. anyways, that that's really all I had to say tonight. And I know I'm rambling. I'm completely exhausted. The pizza crusts are coming along, but man, I've done 8 different recipes in the last 2 days, and honestly, at a point, I don't want to probably eat pizza again for 3 months, and that's where I really made that decision today. That this just has to happen, because if I had 2 or 3 test chefs, recipe testers, whatever you want to call them, helping me out here in Fremont, I could get through these recipes. We could get through these recipes so much faster. And maybe we can find a couple. Maybe I can figure out how to work in some people from out of the area, someone from California or Australia, that I could send the recipes to and work out something with them for a small percentage for their feedback. It's a lot of things to take into consideration, guys. And if you have any suggestions, I'd appreciate them. You know, can let me know down in the comments below, which I don't check very often, to be completely honest. Better off going over to my Facebook page, leaving a comment on my Facebook page, or sending me a direct message through the Grain Free Me website. I think that's it. Hopefully that's it. And hope you guys find this. Hope you guys are doing okay out there. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't yet. Go join up on the Twitter page, the Facebook page. And that's it for tonight. Signing out from Grain for Me and Fremont, Nebraska.